So I'm here with John Lano. John, it's great to have you here. How long have you been invisible and silent?
On my way.
No sweat. I've been carrying on the
All right, I'm
interview
back.
without you, and it's been brilliant.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, I can sit this out then. That's fine.
I noticed John Lano years ago. I heard him somewhere. It must have been on one of his demos or something, and it made an impression. It's like, this guy's good. He sounds authentic and natural, and it's like, yeah, really good. And it turns out he's a really nice guy. And so I wanted to learn more about him, and now you will too. But the first portion of this video is intended to show you how not to start an interview. Okay? Educational purposes. Here you go. Take it away, Jan. Hey there, everybody. Look who I have with me. It's John Lano. Is that right? Am I even... What are we
You got it wrong. Terrible start. Terrible start. It's Lano.
How do you pronounce your last name?
I'm hanging up right now. 1 second. It's Lano.
Lano. Boy,
Lano.
Great way to start. Boy, how about my pre-production, for this interview?
You were really prepared. I appreciate it. Yeah.
John Lano, everybody. Welcome, John. How about that for a welcome? Boy, don't you feel important now? Oh my God.
I feel valued. I feel respected. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm the worst. Anyway, sorry about that,
John. Everyone pronounces it wrong. It's a 4-letter name, but no one gets it right on the first try, unless you're like a Spanish speaker, and then they'll just go with their natural pronunciation. And then I'm not Spanish.
But. And having a rather unusual name myself, you'd think that I might be a little more sensitive to that kind of thing, but nope. Anyway, thanks for coming on today, John. It's great to have you. Great to see you. And
you too.
I've been a long time admirer. I love the way I can't remember how long ago we got kind of introduced on Facebook or whatever, but I remember hearing, I don't know if it was your commercial demo or something like that. I was like, damn, that guy's good. So I've been a fan ever since. So
I don't remember either. I know, like, way back when I joined Voiceover Camp through Terry Daniel.
Yeah.
And then
Voiceover.
I've been like, I used to be a little bit more active, like on the Facebook groups and things like that. Yeah. And I used to blog more, like to voiceover talent. So that could be another way as well.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Well, cool, man. Well, hey, let's dive into, the beginnings. How did you end up getting into voiceover? I mean, were you an actor beforehand? I mean, did you grow up acting? I mean, how did you get here?
That's a good question. Well, so I went to a private college here, university here in central Minnesota.
Okay.
Called St. John's University. I don't know. But I studied psychology there. Totally the exact same thing as voiceover.
Identical.
The exact same. It was a perfect match. It made total sense. No, but I studied that, and throughout my childhood and through high school and into college and through college, I've always been a performer, and I knew voiceover existed. And what I guess interested me about voiceover is I didn't really, I knew about animation and all of that. A lot of people are like, oh, I always made cartoon voices when I was a kid, or I love, cartoons. But for me, I always asked, who's this guy who's doing this jewelry commercial, or who's the guy who's doing this local TV spot or whatever it is. I was like, someone is getting paid to do that, and I'm interested in that. So anyway, I was in college, and I was like, I graduated college, and I was like, I'm gonna go to grad school in something in psychology. I'll figure it out. I'll just study for the GRE, and I'll just make my way, and it'll be totally fine.
Yeah.
But my God, I was studying for the GRE, and I was like, this is it would be fine to take it. I wouldn't have a problem with that, but it was I have zero direction here.
Right.
my passion is not in psychology. I mean, I love psychology as a subject, and
Sure.
I studied business and Spanish as well, but like neither of those things really spoke to me.
Uh-huh.
Um, but then I was like, you know what? Like, what would it take to really do this voiceover thing? Like, I have a
Okay.
degree that I can fall back on. Like,
Yeah.
you know, what would it take? Like, is it something that's even viable? Like, can you make a living off of it? So
Right.
I studied up, and like the original person I worked with actually was Terry
Oh,
Daniel.
okay. Terry Daniel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Terry Daniel. Yeah, here locally in the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
I was like, well, you know what? I'll work with him, and I'll see, like, you know, like kind of learn about the business as I'm being taught by him, and
Sure.
figure out, you know, if I can do this. And
Yeah.
then in the spring of 2012, I decided, you know what? Like, I'm going all in. I'm going to try to make this work. And if it doesn't work, you know, I can try to do something else. I was
Right.
privileged enough to have a 4-year degree, so I could just say, you know what? Then I'll just go into something else. And my
Yeah.
girlfriend, who's now my wife at the time, was supportive. My parents were hesitant. They're still a little bit hesitant, but
What do you do anyway?
I
Yeah.
know, I know. It's like, you know what you'd be great at, John, is not what you do right now. Uh, but they're supportive, and they were encouraging at the time, and they're
Yeah.
still encouraging. Then I just then it just like it happened. It worked. So
That's
then,
great. So you did not end up going to grad school then? You
no,
bailed on that idea and
I
decided,
bailed on the idea. Yeah,
yeah.
I was at the local library studying for the GRE, and I was like, this is like, what am I doing? Like,
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I was just like, I need something that I can actually like put all
Yeah.
of my energy behind, that I'm excited about. And then voiceover, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna look into this. And then that's all I could think about. And
Oh,
so I was
that's
like,
cool. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, see, that's completely different for me because until until I was talking with somebody. I was a plumbing contractor, and I was
yeah.
sitting at a job site, talking with a carpenter who was doing some voiceover on the side, and I was going,
Oh, nice. Yeah,
"Voiceover? What's that?"
yeah,
And because I had been fascinated with voiceover ever since I was a little kid,
yeah,
and but I never knew it was a career. I didn't know it was a job. I just figured, oh, they just pulled somebody in to talk, you know, and whatever. But
right,
I had no idea. I was like, really? People, like,
yeah,
you can make a living doing that? So I was just like, you know, and I was in my mid 40s by then,
right.
or early 40s, and so I was just like, oh my god, I got to check this out. So yeah, that's cool. But it's great that you got an early
What
start.
year? What year was that?
Oh God. This is probably about 15 years ago. Well, 12 years ago,
Okay,
something
so
like
then
that.
like late, like 2008 or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Now, so what kind of work are you doing mostly now? I mean, like, do you find yourself being cast for one or more different niches than others, or what's kind of your bread and butter?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess like what I have focused on, and then as a result, I would say is what has uh, cast me in things is
Uh-huh.
commercial work is something I've really focused on since the beginning. Um,
You've got
so
a great marketing, a very marketable style. I mean, totally.
yeah,
I get
like,
that.
and my voice is it's. I mean, so like obviously I started 8 years ago, so that was
Uh-huh.
like I was like 23.
Yeah.
So I've always had like a lower voice, but not, you know, super low, but lower for my age. So
Uh-huh.
but I can still kind of, you know, bring out that younger sound. So that was, yeah, so like the commercial side of things like really fit really well, and that was what I was interested in. So
Right.
that's kind of what I've focused on.
Sure.
That, and then as well as like a big thing for like my voice age is like explainer videos
Oh, yeah.
and online videos like that, like any sort of web videos.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. I mean, I've done it throughout my career, but I've just recently kind of pushed more into e-learning. And
Yep. Mhm.
I always thought that, and I'm still not a huge fan of long form narration, but I
Mhm.
tend to find that e-learning is a little bit easier for my like attention span
Same
as
here.
opposed to like audiobooks. And I
Definitely.
know I saw you and Terry talking about that in a
Yeah.
previous interview. Like
Yeah.
audiobooks, like I love audiobooks. I love listening to audiobooks.
Uh-huh.
Like it's an incredible genre of voiceover, but it's like to do the editing, to do the preparation, to do what I would need to do to make it a good product. It's just
Right.
like not it
Yeah.
doesn't appeal to me. The 30-second TV spot, like yes, please.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally get it. I have so much respect for people that have success with audiobooks because
Totally.
that is something I can't do.
Yeah.
And so, more power to them and
Yeah, and
they
I think a lot of people when they like come into voiceover or when they're just trying to get their career going, they like try to be a jack of all trades. They try to do like say I want to do all of these different things, but you really like it really pays to figure out like what you're either like intrinsically interested in within
Mhm.
voiceover and
Yeah.
then also what you just know your own limitations, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not to say that you should put limits on yourself initially until you really
Yeah, of
find out,
course.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
what you're
Educate
good
yourself
at.
on
Yeah,
everything that's going.
absolutely. Because
Yeah.
I was like that, I was open to anything, including audiobooks, and then
Yeah.
I realized I'm not really a book reader to begin with. I don't
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
So so it's important. Yeah, very important.
Yeah.
Well, cool, cool. Now what would you like to see more of? I mean, would you like to see more commercials since is that kind of your favorite kind of genre to work in just because
It's
it's nice and fast and, you know
Well, I just like I like the so I like breaking down scripts and I like the 30 seconds like script I guess breakdown
Mhm.
or structure is something that I enjoy kind
Yeah,
of figuring out what the copywriter is trying to say. And
yeah,
so,
yeah, and
you
it's
know,
when it's well
that
written and
exactly. And it's like a little puzzle and you're trying to, you know, figure out how you can align things in the way that they were envisioning. And
yeah,
I still really enjoy that the most. I think that that's something that I'll continue to do until if I ever or until I stop voiceover.
yeah, yeah. No,
Um,
it's fun. It is fun because
yeah,
especially if it's well written and you can kinda tap into, just the kind of the energy between the words and between the
totally.
phrases,
Yeah,
especially if it's clever and that kind of thing. I love that
right.
kind of thing. I wish we saw it more often, but,
Totally. And it's one cool thing is like you know the challenge as a voice talent is that you're like trying to figure out like what like when you're auditioning for a commercial spot, you're trying to figure out like what the producers and the copywriters and everyone's like thinking when they wrote it.
yeah,
But it would be so interesting to be on the other side of the process to see like what the different interpretations are because you can look at a script and interpret it, you know, a million different ways.
yeah,
And so I would love to hear like what other voice talent are interpreting the same script as I
yeah,
am.
that would be interesting to go through
Yeah,
that casting process, from the other
totally. I would
side.
just love to just be a fly on the wall and just like watch that. It
Yeah.
would be like a good learning experience as well.
Totally, yeah, 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 that's great. Um, okay,
But
well
to
well,
answer your
yeah,
question, I didn't fully answer it. So like
okay, go ahead.
so like
"Oh,
what
your
I
time is
like
over, John, quack."
next question. We're done.
No, go ahead.
Uh, what I was gonna say is something that I want to get more into. So I've done it a little bit, but I'm really interested in in-show narration, and done
You've done some.
I've done a little bit of it.
Mhm.
But it's not something I've really pursued actively. It's more like found me. I've gotten lucky,
Yeah,
you know, a few different times.
right.
But it's something that I want to like really dig my teeth into and like you know
Yeah.
grow that skill set. Like I don't even have a demo in that genre, which I need to
Yeah,
get.
right.
Um, and just pursue those opportunities. That whenever I've had the chance to do it, I've really loved doing it because
Yeah.
it's usually like an hour max,
Uh-huh.
which you know is great, and then it's also just trying to like you know tell a story, but
Yeah,
you know in a
right.
concise way. So
I had a little bit of experience with that. Um, I wasn't the final voice, but I was the scratch track creator,
yeah,
and it was a blast. I really
yeah,
liked it, and I was like, come on, man, give me a shot. Let me
yeah,
be the on-screen, talent. And
right,
yeah,
exactly,
they were using, I don't know, some well-known person, but
yeah,
just recording the scratch tracks and watching them go through the process of rewrites and kind of compressing things and switching things around and telling the story like you were talking about. There's
Mhm.
actually quite a bit that goes into it,
Totally.
because
Yeah.
some of it seems so flippant and like not a whole lot goes into it, but it's deceiving, you know.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
and it's a
And
really
it's a huge like if you're especially if you're doing like if you're like the host slash narrator,
yeah,
it's just uh there's so much coordination that has to happen between like when they're producing it, they have to think about like how the narrator is going to talk about it, and then
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know like what footage they need to get, and then there's just a lot that goes into that. So
Yeah.
I'm really interested in that, and I'm hoping to push more into that as the
Cool.
years go by.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a number of years since I did that, and I really enjoyed that, and when the show was over, I was like, "Okay, what's next? Come on."
Yeah, come on, throw me a bone. Yeah,
Yeah, right. "Remember me?
yeah,
I'm over here. Come
yeah.
on." So, okay, so what would you say has been a career highlight for you? Like something that, stands out, "Hey, I did
Yeah.
this."
Man, this is a good question. Like, to me, I feel like you get so like desensitized to things when like
Mhm.
once you're like fully into voiceover, you get like so desensitized to like cool things. I'm not saying things aren't cool, but like in the very beginning, it's like, oh my
Everything's
god,
cool. Yeah, yeah,
everything is like I got hired to do this really generic thing that
yeah,
working talent are like, oh, that's nothing cool.
right.
Like, that's incredible. But I would say so like I'd say over the years, like I've got like I hate it. I've gotten like somewhat desensitized, but for sure, like the coolest thing I guess is that what kind of phone do you use, Jan?
Samsung.
You use a Samsung, so you have a Galaxy.
I do.
What generation?
It's a J3. It's it's gotten a little old, John, and it's kind of crappy.
Sorry, I didn't mean to age your phone
Yeah,
there.
thanks. Thanks for calling me out on my crappy phone, John.
But on I don't actually know if you have it like based on updates or what, but
Yeah.
Samsung's voice assistant's name is Bixby, and I'm the male U.S. voice of Bixby's like voice assistant, which is like
Seriously,
their
that's cool.
yeah, it's like their version of Siri. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty
that's awesome. How long ago did
yeah.
you do that, or is that just an ongoing gig that updates and all that kind of thing?
I wish I could tell you more, but honestly,
Oh,
I can't like say much beyond
yep.
that. I'm
No,
that voice.
that's really okay. Well, that is damn cool. That's
Yeah, it's
damn
it's a
cool.
super cool thing. So like if
Yeah.
you have a Samsung phone, viewers at home, if you have a Samsung phone, pull up the Bixby section and change your voice to John. That'd be me.
I'm going to do that as soon as this is over. I do it right now, but
Yeah. Yeah.
knowing me and my phone, it could take me 2 days to do
I
that.
know. Yeah. Well, and I was originally using a little behind the scenes for the audience here. I was originally using the nice camera that I have, but the audio was like not syncing. But
Oh, right. Yeah.
so I'm using my cell phone right now as the webcam. Otherwise, I would also say,
That's
"Hey
great.
Bixby."
Oh, right, right, right. Yeah. Well, that's really cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That is a nice feather in your cap.
So that's a cool one where like it's also one that like people that don't know about voiceover can be like, "Oh, I can understand that."
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's
That's
really
like
cool.
I feel like that's a challenge. Like when you're talking to people, like, "What do you do?" I do like voices for commercials, and they're like, "So like a radio DJ?
Right.
Like, what do you?" Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. That's a good one. That's a great one.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Now, you're in Minnesota,
Yep.
and
Right on the western border of Minneapolis. Yep.
oh, okay, cool. Now, and summers I've never been to Minneapolis or Minnesota yet, but from my understanding, summers are hot and humid, and mosquitoes are everywhere, and they're about this big, and it sounds lovely. It sounds like a lovely place to be in the summer. So, what do you do to stay hydrated? I don't know about you, but I am a mouth clicking champion.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and so, I mean, I'm drinking I've been sipping on it while we're talking, and
Yeah.
I'm just constantly drinking water, but I take medications that make me clicky anyway, dry mouth. But
Yeah, I get that.
so are you just a straight up water guy? Do you avoid coffee and dairy and all those those terrible, chemicals and substances that are going to gum you up? What do you do?
Well, first, before I move on, I need to correct you, and I'm very upset that you would besmirch the best season of the year in Minnesota.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry.
we're stuck with these long, drawn out winters
Oh,
that
that's
seem to
true.
never end.
Yeah.
And the summertime is like the best time of year.
That
Mosquitoes can be a thing.
Are they this big, like we've been led to believe?
No,
And they
but
suck out about
but
2 pints of blood at a time?
I mean, they do like right at sunset, right at dusk. It's like that is like the witching hour. That's when you don't go outside. But then when the sun goes down, the mosquitoes are like pretty much go to sleep. I don't know where they go, but they go somewhere.
Right.
But
Right.
it's summer is beautiful here. But so take that back, please.
Okay, I take it
Um,
back. I was speaking from ignorance. I'm once again, I got the John's last name incorrectly
yep.
pronounced, and also the geographical region and the weather type was completely incorrect. I retract all of that I have said.
Yeah,
Was
well, that's an important step in the voiceover interview process is to figure out the climate, like the accurate depiction of the climate in that location. That's
Oh,
important as we sit in our booths. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
very true. Now,
To answer your question,
now that we
I'm a
got the
coffee drinker.
retractions out of the way, thank
Yeah.
God. Whew.
Well, I think the thing about like vocal care and it's extremely important, but
Yeah,
I do think that some people are more genetically uh, what's the word?
predisposed.
Predisposed or just more their vocal cords are more sensitive
Oh yeah,
to different things.
yeah,
So for me, um like I've never lost my voice, knock on wood, but like I can put my not that I put my voice through a bunch of stuff, but like I can drink coffee in the morning and
yeah,
like throughout the entire morning and like I don't have any issues.
yeah.
But if I'm not the biggest problem for me is when I'm editing. That's when I get dried out because like I'm sitting there editing and I'm not
Not
drinking.
drinking.
I just did a session, I just did a session where I drank during it, but then not drinking like after the session is like
Uh-huh.
super important, and that's like where I get my
Yeah,
that's where
yeah.
like I noticed like, oh, I forgot to drink for the past 2 hours while
Yeah,
I
because
was
you're
like,
busy, like you're focused on doing this and you're not
yeah,
just reaching for that, cup. Yeah.
yeah. Like when I'm in a session in my sound booth, I'm like drinking water like in between every take, so literally drinking like water constantly. So
Yeah.
that's like not a problem, but uh, after the session, that's or in between sessions is like
Yeah.
where it can be.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Do you change up your diet or you just try to eat healthy anyway? And,
Uh, yeah, I mean, I try to avoid like spicy things. Like during the
Oh,
day, I try to avoid spicy things or
yeah.
like, really dairy heavy things.
Yeah.
But
Right.
mostly it's about like, mostly for me, it's about like portion control. So it's like, if I have
Sure.
like a real heavy meal, I have no energy for
Yeah. It's just like,
voicing like anything
oh,
beyond something that
this
takes,
summer, it's an
yeah,
exciting sale coming to you. Yeah. Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I get it. Now, am I seeing you in your home studio? Is this where you record?
You're seeing me in my office.
Okay.
My actual booth is like right there.
Okay. So you've got an
Uh,
ISO booth.
yeah, I have a whisper room that
Oh,
I've had it God, I've had it since 2012,
oh,
and
wow.
I got super lucky. I was like searching Craigslist because I was like, what am I gonna record out of? Like, I was about ready to like just remake a closet or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but I was like, it'd be cool to try to figure out something like that. Although having a booth has its own difficulties, especially with the male voice and like
Oh, yeah.
the bass tones. And then that was something I kind of like didn't fully prepare for, so I've had to do a lot of like
Sure.
acoustic treatment. But it's worked out great. Obviously, I've
Good.
had it this entire time. But I was looking on Craigslist and I found like an old production house or something was closing down, and they had like 5 whisper rooms back in
Wow.
2012,
Oh,
um, and they were selling them for like $500. And I was like,
what?
it was in Milwaukee, and I was like, well,
Oh,
I will be there tomorrow. So I literally drove to and from Milwaukee, which is like a 7-hour drive from here.
oh,
Uh,
man.
and then just I was like, I'm getting it today. I'll be
But
there in I'll be there in 7 hours. Or,
that's incredible. Yeah, was it in decent shape and stuff?
perfect shape. It came
Wow.
with like it came with like the fan, and
Oh, really?
they even had like a little. I've never used it, but they even had like a little intercom thing.
Oh, cool. So you could talk with the booth, the
The
engineering.
engineer and the
Yeah,
inside, yeah,
yeah.
or like freak out my wife or something. Yeah. So
That's awesome. God, what a steal.
it was such a steal. Like, and looking back at it now, like realizing how much like a used whisper room will go for,
Oh,
it's like, I'm realizing like how much I didn't even realize at the time.
yeah, yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. Well,
Yeah.
that was awesome. So now I know that you have a small child. Congratulations. Like
Thank you.
11 months old. That's totally
Yep.
awesome. Girl or boy?
Boy,
Boy. Congratulations.
Augustus is his name. Yeah.
Augustus?
Augustus.
That's
Yes.
awesome. I love some of these, old world names that are kind of making a comeback, and that's
Totally.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got a
Thank you.
I've got a nephew whose name is Oscar. And
Oh,
you
that's a
just don't
great
you
name.
don't hear a
Yeah.
lot of these names much, but I'm glad some
Yeah.
of these are making it very cool. Now, and that leads me to my next question, and that is, how do you balance your work life and your private life? I mean, especially with a small kid. I mean, that's got to
Yeah.
take up so much of your time and so much of your when you would be sleeping,
Right.
your resting time. I mean,
Yeah. It was
it's difficult enough as it is being a freelancer or an entrepreneur or whatever you want
totally.
to call what we do. You're kind of
Yeah.
tied to what we do and our clients and all that stuff. How do
Right.
you work all of that out?
Well, that like ever since lockdowns and once the pandemic hit,
Yeah.
uh, that got even worse because it's like um, he was at daycare, which was great, and that gave my wife and my wife now has to work from home full time,
Oh,
but
okay.
she didn't before. So before it was like for the first couple months of this year, he was at daycare, she was at work, and it was like, this is great. Like, finally after 7 months of him being around or whatever, or
Yeah.
6 months, I can really like dive in fully. I mean, I was before, but like, man, it was like sleepless nights and
Oh, man.
you
Yeah.
but yeah, the balance has been very difficult because we had to watch him
Yeah.
uh, during the day for like 4 months straight. So he just finally went back. So
Oh,
hopefully now, I mean, hopefully now I can really push like the marketing side of things because like thankfully I was lucky. Like when he was born, I was like fully prepared for it. Whereas
good.
like I had a good stable of like steady clients. I had
Yeah, your core
understanding
group.
clients,
Yeah, good.
core group that I could really lean on, and I could still do auditions and I could still do like a little bit of marketing here and there.
Yeah.
But uh, but yeah, once lockdown hit, it was like I was not prepared for this. I was prepared for like 3-4 months of
Yeah,
baby and having him home and all of that.
right.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, man. That's gotta be tough. Well, hopefully, you're kind of into the swing of it now.
right. Yeah, I'm hoping now like it's been weird having him back, and you never
Uh-huh.
you want to make the right decisions. You don't never know what's like, totally right, but like I'm very grateful that we have like a daycare that we like trust, and
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, yeah.
I can't
Cool.
imagine having like little kids right now who
Oh,
like
running around
may or
and
may not be going back to school in the fall, and like
yeah.
and being
Oh,
a voice talent or or anything really.
I've got, my next door neighbors over here have 2 little kids, and
Yeah,
I know that their parents are just like, "Ah," and
yeah,
I mean, I feel for them and
totally.
yeah,
No
it's
one, no one was prepared to
no, no,
have
it's
their kids home all the
the
time, and
impact of this has just been enormous. So
yeah,
yeah, that is a blessing that at least he is still young enough to, not need to be entertained and,
right.
all that stuff. Yeah, that's just
Just
nuts.
just watch so he doesn't hurt himself,
Yeah, yeah,
basically.
exactly. Yeah. Okay, now so are you one of those that tries to stick to office hours, like, I'm going to work from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 or whatever, no weekend work, no evenings, or are you pretty much open with your clients, you're there when you're needed? How do you handle that part of the business?
I think that was especially a challenge when I first started. It was
Mm.
like, I was like, it was like that feeling where it's like you have to work 20, like not 24 hours a day, but you have to
Right.
work,
Your
you know,
availability is almost
availability
24/7.
is 24/7. And I do stick to that depending on like the actual need of the client.
Yeah.
Um, but most clients are reasonable. They work normal hours.
Yeah.
They're, not expecting the world, at all times. Sometimes, they have a quick deadline and, you can meet that. But most of the time I try to stick to, especially now that my son is back in daycare and
Yeah.
before, I try to stick to like as efficient as possible schedule from like, morning until normal close, like 8 to 6 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then if anything, if I need to do anything after that, like I can totally do that. Or if I need to work on the weekend, that's totally fine. But I
Yeah.
try to keep a good balance that way, I
Yeah,
guess.
good, good. Is your wife, I mean, does she, I mean, since she's working from home now, is she pretty much just clocking in and clocking out at certain times of the day? Or is she
Yeah,
kind of,
her schedule can vary. Also depends
oh,
on. Um, she works for an agent's PR agency, and
I
so
see.
her schedule kind of varies on like what clients need as well. She's working with clients as well. Um, So her schedule is also kind of depending on, client need and things like
Yeah.
that. But most of the time, she's also kind of working that same schedule, especially because, once our son's home from daycare, we want to
Yeah.
spend time with him before he has to go to sleep.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And if we need to work more after that, we can totally do that. So that's like
Right.
nice. We have like a nice understanding. Like, if you
Yeah.
need to work, you got to work.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Got to
So
provide for that family,
yes,
your growing
exactly.
family. Well, cool. Okay. Now, thinking back, we talked about your very cool highlight, a career highlight. Now, have there been some embarrassing moments or a time when you really screwed something up and at least you were able to laugh it off in the end? And are there any of those embarrassing moments that you can share with us?
Yeah. God, when I was in I was like in a directed session.
Uh-huh.
How long ago was that? Maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah.
I was in a directed session at a studio in downtown Minneapolis, and
Okay. Yeah.
there was like five of us in there. There's an audio engineer. There's like a couple producers. There's a copywriter. Anyway, one of the people in there, I think it was the copywriter. I can't remember exactly, but like for whatever reason, I was doing these reads. Everyone was super happy,
Yeah.
but this one copywriter, for whatever reason, thought I had like a hint of a New Zealand accent. Is the weirdest thing. So like I literally had to read lines like so many more times, and
Oh,
she couldn't get it out of her head. We
bizarre.
It was so bizarre, and I was like, do I? Like,
Yeah.
Jan, you hear me right now? Do I sound like I'm from? Do I sound like someone from New Zealand?
No, I was going to say Australia.
Australia,
But
yeah, yeah.
no.
I know. And everyone else there was like I think you're hearing things. Like
That
I
is
don't hear that at all. But she was kind of like in charge more of
oh,
the session. So like I just had to continually repeat and like try to eliminate all accent.
that is so weird.
And
And
I
was
don't
it
have like a I've done my even when I was a kid, I tried to like avoid taking on too much of that classic like Minnesota accent.
right, right.
Um, uh, but
Yeah,
like
I would never know you were Canadian.
I didn't know I was leaning away from that and
And
into New
into a
Zealand.
New Zealand. God, that is bizarre. And how long did it finally take? I mean, I've been in those sessions where you're just, it's like you're on auto repeat, it's just like
Yeah.
same
And it was
tagline.
like, how many different ways can I read this? Like,
Yeah.
I read it the way that you want it.
It's the worst because you kind of, well, I don't know about you, but it's frustrating and you got to keep those emotions, you know, buried
Totally.
and just kind of,
Yeah.
sure.
And then
How many more hundreds
especially
of times can I read this for you? I would be
exactly,
delighted. Yeah.
exactly. In a session like that, it's like I was just patient, and it was such a bizarre thing that I was like almost just more like taken aback. So I was just
Oh,
like,
right. Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep reading it. Like I don't know. And eventually, we just had to cut it off. It was like she's just like, well, I guess we'll just go with it, and I must be
Uh,
just hearing things today.
what a
So,
bummer. I mean, that can turn that little kind of a thing can turn a really fun session into just a total downer because you
yeah,
know that somebody on the team isn't happy. And it's just like, oh,
right.
you
And
know,
they ended up being happy with the final product, like completely happy. So
yeah,
like it was totally fine, but it was just such a weird, you
yeah,
know, a lot of times the frustration is, if they like want something repeated in a certain way and like
yeah,
you're doing it a certain way and they're not hearing it that way and
right.
you want to make them happy, obviously, like do what you
Yeah,
can do.
yeah,
But
totally.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Oh, that is
that
totally.
was like so bizarre. So that was like embarrassing because I was like,
Yeah.
do I do I have like a slight New Zealand? If I had a slight New Zealand accent this whole time, it's like asking friends and family, like, do I have like a weird?
I'm a Kiwi. Who knew?
Right, exactly. Do I sound like the guys from Flight of the Conchords, like Brett and Jermaine? Yeah, right.
Right. Oh, that's cool, John. Well, listen, it's been great having you on and chatting with you today. Thanks so much for coming on. I don't want to take up any more of your time, except how do people get a hold of you? What can you do? What do you want to plug? I'm sure you've got a website and
I've got a website, but I honestly, the place I'm most active right now is on Twitter. So just follow me at John Lano, Lano,
John.
not Lano, not Lano,
Yeah, right.
Lano.
Lano. Okay,
So
cool.
at John Lano, yeah, and then you can get there's a link to my website there, but that's where I'm most active. That's where if people want to talk or hang out or whatever. So
Cool. Side note, do you market a lot on Twitter as well? Do you find that that is a good place for you to market your services on Twitter?
I did that more uh, several years ago. That's
Yeah.
maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, and it worked a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think for the amount of time you have to put into it,
Yeah.
not necessarily the greatest ROI.
I got you. Yeah.
I would say like LinkedIn is like, people are looking to do business there. So
Right.
like that's a great place to do it. I know
Yeah.
Mark Scott has been
Uh-huh.
teaching about like using LinkedIn.
Right.
Um,
Cool.
but yeah, Twitter, I mean, you can do it. I mean, the great thing about Twitter is that like there are people of, big like high up decision makers that if you can get a conversation going with them,
Mm-hmm.
um, or get on their radar, you
Yeah.
can potentially work it that way. It's just more of a long game thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Right.
Going up in someone's mentions randomly and just
Uh-huh.
like, hey, I want to email you,
Yeah.
like it's a little bit more awkward there because it's not a place of business.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Cool. All right, great. Well, thanks so much for coming on, John. I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. This was a lot of fun. So
Cool. Cool.
can't wait to
Awesome.
do the part two. It's going to be great.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe I'll get the Minnesota climate correct and also your last name. That would
Last
be great
name,
too.
that'd be great, Jan. I appreciate that. It's the least you can
Okay.
do.
Thanks again, John. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Have a great one.